Chapter 2. No matter how bad things get in Logan County, no matter how the clouds swirl, how the radar screens light up, I'll be safe in Placid Meadows. Perfectly 100% safe. That's what Dad promised Mom, how he convinced her to send me here to the heart of the storm belt for the summer. And his new self-sufficient storm-safe community does sound impressive. Safety, higher water, and kilowatt allowances. Thanks to Placid Meadows' private solar and wind energy reserves. Ion Tomorrow Science Camp, the state-of-the-art program Dad's corporation runs for the best and brightest young minds in the world. Dad said it went without saying that I was one of them and sent me admissions papers, but I still wanted to take the official entrance exam. When I answered the last question on my data slate and pressed the submit button, the score that appeared on the screen put me in the top 5% of applicants. I couldn't argue that I didn't belong there. Plus, Mom had her own research project waiting in the shadow of an active Costa Rican volcano. Not to be outdone by my father's adoration of storms, Mom's had her own love affair with frogs. While Dad's been studying the effects of global warming on storm formation, she's been researching its impact on wildlife in sensitive ecosystems, particularly rainforest amphibians like the poison dart frog. Mom's wanted to take this trip for years but had nobody I could stay with until now. This must be our weather, girl. As we pull up to the Placid Meadows gate, a beanpole of a man leans down into the HV window. Dad nods in my direction. This is indeed my daughter Jaden, the infamous weather girl. My stomach's still tangled from the storm, but I smile. Nobody's called me that in 4 years, and even though I'm a total science geek, I'm surprised Dad still thinks about me that way. Surprised, and I guess a little pleased. Hi, Jaden, I'm Lou. He points to the shiny silver name tag on his navy blue uniform. There's a storm-safe emblem above his name. Does everybody here work for Dad? Any update on the expansion, Dr. Meggs? Unfortunately, no, Dad says. Looks like Phase 2 is going to be delayed a bit. What's Phase 2? I ask. Phase 1 of Placid Meadows is full, and we have 24 families waitlisted, so we're going to expand the development if we can get the land we need. Lou chuckles. Those farmers getting you down? Dad isn't smiling anymore. Honestly, why someone would be crazy enough to stay here to run a dying farm is beyond me. And why anybody would turn down an offer that's 5 times what the property is worth? Ugh. Dad shakes his head, then looks at the dashboard clock. I'd better get Jaden home. He lifts 2 fingers from the steering wheel in a wave. When he drives through the Placid Meadows gate, it's like driving from Kansas into the land of Oz. From the minute I stepped off the plane, Oklahoma has been a place of charcoal skies and yellow-gray clouds. It's like Florida when the hurricanes started getting bigger. No one lives here anymore, unless they're too attached to family farms or they can't afford to leave. The oil wells were abandoned a decade ago when the international fossil fuels ban took effect. The sprawling cattle ranches are ghost towns. It's a state abandoned, except for a few farms, storm-torn mobile home parks, and corrections department energy farms, where convicted criminals ride generator cycles outside in the daytime and sleep in storm-safe bunkers at night. It's a black and white world with shades of brown. But Placid Meadows blooms in full, all of a sudden color. A billowing garden of bright flowers divides the street. In the middle is a fat boulder with a bronze plaque affixed to it. Welcome to Placid Meadows, a storm-safe community, it says in calm, loopy cursive. All around the garden bursts with reds and pinks and fuchsias. Tall purples tip their heads and spreading silver blues creep along the curb. It's beautiful. I lower my window to breathe in all that brightness. And for the first time since I said goodbye to Mom at the airport in Burlington, I almost feel calm. Dad pulls over and smiles, and his face relaxes into something I almost recognize from the Dad I had before. Isn't it the most gorgeous garden you've ever seen? I nod, but this new glimpse of Dad is more interesting than the plants now. The data slate man from the car seems to have been sucked into a folder inside him. Now he looks like someone who might order rainbow sprinkles on an ice cream cone again someday. Between that and the flowers, I feel my heart lift. Maybe this summer will be all right. The flowers are so perfect. I lean out my window. Of course they are. Everything we plant is DNA sure. It's the best. He puts the HV back in gear. We better go. Marielle's making an early dinner. Marielle. The stepmom I've only seen on my Data Slate video phone, and always with my new half-sister Remy in her arms. Dad pulls away from the garden farther into the development. The street is lined with storm-safe houses, concrete structures tinted mauve, slate blue, and sea green. They have windows, which surprises me a little. They must be made of glass that's engineered not to shatter under pressure. And there are bigger buildings without windows. Are those houses too, I ask? Nope. That one's the community warehouse. Dad nods toward a big brick-colored structure as we pass. DNA sure delivers food orders once a week so we don't need to go to the regional grocery store. No wonder the farms Dad mentioned to Lou aren't doing so well. Dad points out my window. Here's the entertainment dome. He slows down as we pass a building that looks like the big skating rink at home. The electronic sign outside has a schedule of showings. Movies, sporting events, ballet, and theater streamed in live from the National Arts Center in New York. And something called Museum Night with Natural History, Jurassic Period on Tuesday, and American History 1900 to 2050 on Thursday. What's Museum Night? I ask as Dad pulls away. He smiles a little. Do you remember when you were really small? I think you were 3. When we took you to closing ceremonies for the American Museum of Natural History in New York City? Kinda. I remember walking through a room with huge dinosaurs and another one was all kinds of rocks and gems, and Mom was crying. Mostly I remember Mom being sad. Dad nods. It broke her heart when the government decided most of the major museums needed to close, so artifacts could be protected in underground bunkers until the storm crisis is resolved. But this place, he looks in the rearview mirror, is the Museum of the Future. It's all holograms, so it changes every night. What did it say for this week? Jurassic and American History. Great shows, you should go, Dad says. You walk a path through the dome and you'll see dinosaurs approaching. The T-Rex looks like it's about to eat you for dinner. He chuckles. They're just holograms, so they don't bite, but they're realistic. American history is fascinating, too. You meet history makers of the 20th and 21st centuries, Martin Luther King, Steve Jobs, Al Gore, and former presidents, too. I think they have Barack Obama and Grace Farley in this show. Interesting, I say, and it is. But then I have another flash of memory from the museum's closing night, the feel of a cool, rough dinosaur tail under my hand when I ducked under the velvet rope to touch it, even though the sign said not to. It felt real, like it might come alive and roar any second. A hologram could never feel like that. We turn a corner and Dad slows down. That's Risha Patel, the girl I told you about on our video call last week. The girl looks about my age. Her long black hair has a bright green streak along one side. She must have a beat bud in her ear because she's bobbing her head back and forth to something fast and playing imaginary drums in the air. Right above the handlebars of her bicycle as she rides along hands-free. Dad speeds up again, but I turn in my seat and stare. She is riding a bike. Nobody rides bikes anymore at home. The storms turn up so fast, there's not a kid in our neighborhood who is allowed to ride more than halfway down the block. So why bother? Amelia was the last of my friends to give hers up. She held out right through last summer and never cared how ridiculous she looked riding up and down the street, back and forth alone. When we laughed, she told us that in her mind she was going all over town through the woods past the big tree house where our moms used to camp out when they were little, branches brushing her cheeks as she flew down the trails. But at the end of the summer, we got our storm-safe mall and teen center. And even Amelia figured that was better than imaginary trails. The recycling crew picked up her bike at the beginning of October. Was this girl imagining faraway places too? Does she live right around here? I asked Dad. He shakes his head. The Patels live on the other side of the development, closer to the Eye on Tomorrow campus. Wow. I scan the horizon. The storm we just saw has already barreled off, but there are more clouds churning in the west. She's far from home for a storm day. Dad laughs. I see it's going to take you a while to get used to being a storm-safe kid. He slows down and pulls into the driveway of an adobe-colored concrete box. It's different here. He presses a button on the dashboard, and a dome-shaped mouth yawns open on one wall. He pulls the HB forward into what must be the storm-safe version of a garage. 3 bicycles are lined up inside, one in my favorite color, electric blue. We ride bikes all over the place here. In fact, he says, nodding to the fleet along the wall, it was supposed to be a surprise, but the blue one's yours. You'll love having that freedom again. But how can that be safe? I know the houses are safer here, but if you're outside, the storms are even worse than at home. So how many times do I have to tell you? Dad shakes his head, smiling. When you are inside the gates of Placid Meadows, you are safe. Totally and completely safe. He presses another button on the dashboard. The garage door rumbles again, and behind us, the mouth on this safe house slides shut.